to protect residents from bad governance and mismanagement by getting the basics right, delivering better services, and having zero tolerance for corruption. This is the DA difference. The next broadcast will start shortly. Follow us on social media for the latest in news and politics in South Africa. Like and follow our page on Facebook. Follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and X. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss out on anything. Be part of the conversation. Tell us what you think in the comment section. And please, like and share our videos with your friends and family. The next broadcast will start shortly. If you care about South Africa and want to make a positive difference, then join the DA. Visit our website at da.org.za for more information. Find out who represents you in your ward and district. Who are the DA mayors working for you in your town or city, and which MPs represent you and your causes in Parliament. On our website, you can learn more about our latest campaigns and how you can get involved. Join the Democratic Alliance to rescue South Africa. Become an activist, become a councillor, become a member of Parliament if you care about South Africa. Please visit donate.da.org.za. Donate to a cause you believe in. Donate to make a difference. Welcome to a broadcast of the Democratic Alliance. Did you know the Democratic Alliance is the stable anchor of the Government of National Unity? DA ministers and DA deputy ministers are getting things done with a special focus on job creation and economic growth, driving down the cost of living and placing the needs of the people first. Join the mission to rescue South Africa. The next broadcast will start shortly. Did you know the best run municipalities in South Africa are all governed by the DA? DA mayors are working hard to protect residents from bad governance and mismanagement by getting the basics right, delivering better services, and having zero tolerance for corruption. This is the DA difference. The next broadcast will start shortly. Follow us on social media for the latest in news and politics in South Africa. Like and follow our page on Facebook. Follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and X. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss out on anything. Be part of the conversation. Tell us what you think in the comment section. And please, like and share our videos with your friends and family. The next broadcast will start shortly. If you care about South Africa and want to make a positive difference, then join the DA. Visit our website at da.org.za for more information. Find out who represents you in your ward and district. Who are the DA mayors working for you in your town or city, and which MPs represent you and your causes in Parliament. On our website, you can learn more about our latest campaigns and how you can get involved. Join the Democratic Alliance to rescue South Africa. Become an activist, become a councillor, become a member of Parliament if you care about South Africa. Please visit donate.da.org.za. Donate to a cause you believe in. Donate to make a difference. Let's rescue South Africa. Join the DA, because the DA gets things done.
Ready and you haven't got Ja.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming. Nice to see you all. We're holding this press conference for the Justice Cluster because we're rather concerned about the ongoing organisational crisis that appears to have beset the National Prosecuting Authority. We remain aware that the NPA is a huge organisation with many facets. And there are literally thousands of prosecutors who go to work each day and do their best. Of course, everyone's best is different. And it's impossible for one person to run the organisation. And it certainly doesn't operate in isolation. So the National Director really must be able to delegate with confidence and to successfully coordinate all the various aspects of the NPA. She must necessarily rely on the competence and commitment of other senior and junior staff members. Unfortunately, with the best intentions in the world, this is just not happening. Things, rather sadly, appear to be falling apart. It's not only the big cases upon which the eyes of the country are focused, hoping rather forlornly for accountability to be demonstrated, but they are failing to prosecute with any kind of conviction. Now, once again, in the last few days, the NPA has lost an important cog in a state capture case, most recently by failing to follow the correct process to extradite former Free State Premier Ace Magashule's ex-personal assistant, Moradi Cholota. The problem appears to be that the NPA, in the form of the Director of Public Prosecutions of the Free State, applied for the extradition, and not the Minister of Justice, which is the correct route. We have requested the Justice Committee Chair to call the Minister, the Department of Justice and the NPA to be brought before the committee to again explain this problem. But these mistakes keep happening now with monotonous regularity, which leads to a broader failure of the NPA to successfully prosecute large-scale corruption cases. Not a single politically connected person has yet been imprisoned as a result of state capture. There are other examples of other failures. The Transnet corruption case, insufficient evidence presented, and there was an acquittal. New Loan Investments, NPA failed to establish a prima facie case, made horrendous procedural errors, which the judge described as a comedy of errors. Zizi Kadwa, the matter is withdrawn by the NPA. The Vrede Dairy Farm case was thrown out of court. And they are failing even at the most basic prosecutions. My colleague, Mr. Klopper, will enlighten you about those.
Thank you. As my colleague said, they're failing at these basics. And we can see of this in the Omotoso case. The matter was recently thrashed out in the Justice Portfolio Committee. And what was presented was a litany of errors, which, had they not been so serious, with serious and concerning consequences, it would have been actually comedic. It was clear from the outset that this matter was beset with problems, and they should have been picked up and they should have been addressed by the provincial and the national leadership at the beginning of the prosecution. Having heard how the matter was handled, the disastrous acquittal was entirely foreseeable and preventable. We can move on to the AfriForum private prosecution, where AfriForum recently successfully prosecuted a common assault case, which the NPA declined to prosecute. And this beggars the imagination, causes one to pause and wonder what precisely is being done if these nuts and bolts cases are not even successfully prosecuted. The NPA has to date failed to prosecute state capture cases, creating this impression that those responsible for looting state money will never be held accountable. This is despite the NPA's Amendment Act, which has seen the creation of the Permanent Investigative Directorate within the NPA. While the Act is a very small step in the right direction to address these issues of the fight against corruption, this piece of legislation merely is a temporary solution to a far greater and more pressing issue that have resulted in this lethargic pace at which those responsible for state capture and organised crimes are being held to account. The Amendment Act fails to address the real problem within the NPA. And this is a lack of sufficient and appropriate skills and funding. The scope in which the Act attempts, albeit unsuccessfully, to replicate were effective, as they had this excellent, had access to these excellent and experienced prosecutors and effective investigators. The Scorpions also had a robust budget, an absolute necessity if combating crime is ever to be resurrected successfully. It must be said that the NPA is fatally hampered by this perennial lack of budget. And this is at best an indication of possible that there is a lack or no political will to effectively combat crime. The NPA simply lacks independence, resources, and the capabilities to prosecute complex financial crimes, and has yet to successfully prosecute one high-profile case of corruption in his recent memory. The Amendment Act does nothing to remove the spectre of the ministerial control over the NPA, as they still exercise the final responsibility over the NPA and the control of the budget, or at least the lack thereof. The fact that the ID is permanent is also misleading. Depending on the political winds, a simple majority could see its removal, as when the Scorpions were disbanded by a legislative amendment for going after politicians of the Travel Gate debacle, and for the successful prosecution of Jackie Celebi. This means that the ID does not enjoy the security of tenure required to ensure its independence. The fight for corruption cannot be solved by slapdash legislation which does nothing to properly ensure the independence of the NPA. We simply need bigger and bolder reforms. Thank you.
So we want to propose some long-term solutions to this issue. And of course, the biggest long-term solution that we propose is an anti-corruption commission. Currently, the Democratic Alliance has a private members bill before Parliament, the Constitution 21st Amendment Bill. The bill proposes the establishment of an anti-corruption commission as a solution to getting South Africa off the grey list. The Anti-Corruption Commission would be an independent body which would be empowered to investigate and prosecute serious corruption and high-level organised crime. The two things that at this point are getting no attention at all. The Constitution 21st Amendment Bill, or the Scorpions 2.0 Bill as people like to call it, will establish the Anti-Corruption Commission, a body tasked with investigating and prosecuting serious corruption, high-level organised crime as a Chapter 9 body. It will be independent of executive control, it will enjoy security of tenure, it will report only to Parliament, and it will have its budget determined by the National Treasury and not the Minister of Justice. That will free the Anti-Corruption Commission up to negotiate with Treasury sufficient budget to be used to combat crime effectively. What we're seeing at the moment is that the National Prosecuting Authority budget is determined really by the Department of Justice and has on year for the last probably 10 years been slashed. So there's no surprises there that they're not managing. The 21st Amendment Bill is aimed directly at correcting the current state of affairs, where the National Prosecuting Authority is failing to prosecute serious corruption and high-level organised crime. It's common cause that the NPA was hollowed out during state capture. The Scorpions, a special directorate within the NPA, was a very effective body, but was dissolved by politicians at the stroke of a pen. Our Scorpions 2.0 Bill directly counteracts these problems by embodying the STIRS criteria set out by the Glynnis judgment, revitalising the parallel state prosecution of serious corruption and high-level organised crime. We received overwhelming support during the public comment stage of the bill, and it's high time that Parliament realises that the NPA and the Department of Justice are simply unable to serve South Africans and save them from the thugs that looted the people of South Africa in one of our country's darkest times. For the steps going forward, we'll have Nicholas.
So how do we move forward from here? Firstly, by implementing watching brief programs. Secondly, by strengthening the independence of the NPA. And thirdly, by focusing on capacitation. The implementation of watching brief programs will ensure that cases are sufficiently prosecuted and that it gains data to improve the investigation and prosecution of these crimes. The Watching Brief program and a dedicated Watching Brief unit was successfully introduced by the DA in the Western Cape. The aim of the unit is to monitor police conduct and to identify police inefficiencies, to act as a go-between of SAPS, the NPA, and the victims of rural crime, in order to achieve improvements in SAPS and the NPA's handling of such cases, as well as achieving better convictions of such crimes. Then, to strengthen the independence of the NPA, it will require the introduction of constitutional amendments to ensure that the power to appoint and fire the NDPP is not in the sole discretion of the President. The NDPP should be appointed by a resolution of Parliament, arrived at after a thorough and intense vetting, interviewing and debating process, and allowing for the removal of the NDPP by a resolution of Parliament, passed by a majority on the grounds of misconduct, incompetence, or incapacity. This is a bill being developed by the DA as a private member's bill. To capacitate the NPA, we must ensure that the NPA receives sufficient budget to urgently fill all vacancies. Steps must be implemented to ensure that talented individuals are attracted to the NPA, and that the selection criteria must be improved to increase the caliber of prosecutors. Measures must also be put in place to ensure that the most competent and experienced prosecutors remain in service of the public sector. Many public prosecutors and senior prosecutors are attracted to the private sector due to government inefficiencies and higher salaries. So we propose a performance audit of the NPA by the Auditor General or the Public Service Commission, the establishment of a parliamentary portfolio subcommittee dedicated to ongoing oversight of the NPA's performance, and regular public performance reporting by the NPA, including conviction rates not expressed in percentages, but in real figures, demonstrating the actual position and case turnaround times. Finally, in order to assist overworked prosecutors and to help implement the above measures, we must give consideration to implementing a pilot project which offers final year LLB students the opportunity to obtain hands-on experience assisting prosecutors with docket administration, research, and drafting, all skills that will stand them and any aspiring lawyer in good stead through their careers.
Okay, if there are any questions, we're happy to take questions on the subject matter. Yes?
Good morning, ma'am. Llewellyn Prince of Netwerk 24. My first question is apart from the underfunding of the NPA, what do you think is the major reasons for these failures of these prosecutions? Do you think it's systematic problems, or is it just incompetence on the part of the NPA? And this is the other question, Mr. Godsall. You spoke about the issue of the strengthening the independence of the NPA and the DA wanting to table a private members bill with regard to that. When will that bill be tabled? And how far is the bill for the anti-corruption commission in Parliament? I know it was tabled. Just to get clarity on how far is the process currently. Thank you.
Okay. So the problems with the NPA are systemic in nature. They were hollowed out during state capture. Those really 10, 12 years took an enormous toll on the NPA, and many experienced and qualified people left. Prosecuting is a job that you learn on the job. It doesn't matter how well qualified you are academically. To learn the job of a prosecutor, you actually have to prosecute, so it takes time. In my view, it takes 10 years to make a good, experienced and confident, because confidence is important, a confident prosecutor. That makes, in my view, it takes 20 years to achieve that in a specialist unit. So it's not a short-term project. And so what we've had is we've seen a lot of prosecutors come into the system, experienced prosecutors have left, and so there's no one for the young prosecutors to learn from. And people who have left, and even now, people are retiring, and there's very little to nothing being done to retain those skills. We've suggested to the NPA that consider a mentorship program where these people who are retiring, who are very experienced, very competent, and most of them specialists, are brought back to mentor young prosecutors. That doesn't appear to be happening. And so I know of many experienced prosecutors who have retired in the last 2 years who are sitting at home, literally planting daisies. It's a waste. I'll take the question that you asked Mr. Gotzel because it's my bill. The bill has been introduced to Parliament. And the bill that you refer to, it's one bill. It's the bill for the Anti-Corruption Commission. It's the 21st Amendment bill. And it was introduced to the Portfolio Committee where it didn't receive much support, mediocre reception from the ANC, and as you would expect, an absolute horror and ripping of our clothes from the MK and the EFF. But I mean, the reasons for that are quite obvious. So if there are successful prosecutions in large-scale corruption or organised crime, then they're sort of in the firing line. So they don't want a bill like that to succeed. Yeah. Yes.
Hi, my name is Bulelani from SABC. Given that you are part and parcel of the GNU, have you raised these proposals that you are putting on the table within the GNU? That's the first question. The second one is that given the numerous losses by the high-profile cases by the NPA, in the last committee where the NDPP was there was quite some few political parties who raised the issue of her removal. Is that a motion that you intend to bring to Parliament? And if so, do you think the situation has reached that level? And also, given the context that the term of office of the NDPP comes to an end at the end of January, would there be enough time to actually process that? Thank you. Okay,
thanks. So, of course, these matters have been raised within the GNU, and they've been raised for some time. Lobbying for support for the legislation that will set up an anti-corruption commission is something that is not new, and I didn't expect there to be a huge appetite for it, I mean, for the obvious reasons. However, I do believe quite firmly that it's the only solution to the current problem. To rebuild the NPA is going to take 20 years. We can't wait 20 years for these prosecutions to happen. To fill up an anti-corruption commission with competent staff would be much easier than the NPA. The anti-corruption commission would not be hampered by the appointment processes that hamstring the NPA. The anti-corruption commission would have a different funding model, so it would be able to compete with salaries, on a competitive market level, and attract serious skills. The model of the old Scorpions is a model that worked, and that would largely be the model of the Anti-Corruption Commission, with the one simple but very important difference that would be an independent body. So it wouldn't fall under a government department. So it would need, and the reason why we wanted to be a Chapter 9 is that it would need the heightened majority in Parliament to disband it. And 75% is not a percentage that any one party is ever going to achieve in this country again. So that would give them security of tenure. The spectre of the disbandment of the NPA still hangs, of the DSO still hangs very heavily over, that segment of the criminal justice system. They understand that if you go after politicians or connected people, then the chances are good that you'll lose your job. It dampens the appetite sometimes. As far as the removal of the NDPP goes, we certainly wouldn't table such a motion, and we would certainly not support it. The National Director is not the problem at the NPA. It's not a one-man job or a one-woman job. And while I think that she could possibly have done things differently, she is not doing a bad job. And the failures of the NPA are not, attributable to her and her alone. You mentioned that she has only a few months left in office, which is something that concerns us deeply. And we've raised that more than a year ago already, and suggested that we start the appointment process and that we follow a process that was used the last time. Even though the President has a prerogative to appoint the NDP without consultation, he chose, when he appointed Advocate Breytenbach, to use a public participation process, which was very laudable. And so we're hoping that he will do that again. But it takes time. People need to, apply for jobs. People need time to sift through, I'm sure, many CVs, because I'm sure there'll be a lot of applicants for the job. Unfortunately, I'm not sure that there will be many qualified applicants. The job requires a certain skill set that is not readily available just everywhere. And she leaves, like you said, at the end of January. She turns 65 in January, and that's the end of the line for a national director. She won't have finished 10 years in office, but we all knew that that was going to happen. And the longer that this is postponed and not attended to, the more dangerous the situation becomes. So it's a process that I would like to see start yesterday. You had a question?
You actually asked me.
Oh, you covered. Okay.
Hi, thank you. Babalo from EWN. You've outlined the shortcomings, the weaknesses, the lack of experience. Does this not leave these complex state capture cases that Shamila Batoy has spoken about, how complicated they are, does this not leave them, dead in the water, basically?
Well, it shouldn't. So it is a problem. You need a certain skill set to prosecute those cases. There's no question about that. You also need the budget. It's not cheap to prosecute cases. You need access to seriously qualified cyber forensic experts. They don't come cheap. You need forensic audits done. It's not cheap. The quotes for a forensic audit in a state capture case would run anywhere between 10 and 50 million rand. The NPA, that would be for the police's budget, but they're equally hamstrung by a lack of budget. Cyber forensic experts are paid for by the Department of Justice. They have to pay the witness fees. It's very, very expensive. So if you don't have budget, it becomes difficult and then impossible to prosecute these cases successfully. And that's one of the reasons why we're seeing these debacles in court. It's because there hasn't been sufficient consultation with subject matter experts. But there are still skills in the NPA that can do these cases. Not many. Understand me, not many. I could count them on probably two hands. I may have fingers over, somewhat concerningly. But there are still skills. But there are many skills out there that have left, retired, gone elsewhere that must be brought back. And if they're not going to go back to the NPA, then the Anti-Corruption Commission will be able to attract them, because we will be able to compete with them financially. So these cases can't be considered dead in the water and forgotten about. They're cases that South Africans expect to see accountability. They want to see people who stole taxpayers' money in orange overalls. It's got to happen.
Just the last one, Honorable Breytenbach. I'd like to get your comment on this statement that was made by the NDPP last night in an interview, and again this morning, where she indicates that the NPA has seen an infiltration by people who don't have the best interests at heart of the institution. I'd like to get your comment on that, because she has not elaborated on that until, I guess, she speaks to the President. Thank you.
Well, my comment on that would be that it's taken a while for her to get to this point. When she was appointed, certainly I warned her, and I know other people did too, that there were people in the organization who did not have the best interests of the NPA at heart. It was very clear then, and it's still clear, and we all know who they are.
Who are they?
Nice try. We all know who they are. And you're a smart young man, I'm sure you know too. And she hasn't been able to get rid of them, either because she hasn't tried, and some of them we know she has tried, and she's been hampered in that process. So the ineluctable conclusion is, again, that there's no political will to fix the NPA and to properly prosecute state capture cases, other high-profile corruption matters, and to go after organised crime. Oh, sorry, yes.
You are painting a bleak picture. The Anti-Corruption Commission is not going to come off the ground anytime soon. And you say it takes 10 years and 20 years for a prosecutor in a specialized unit to be successful and confident. It doesn't sound good. What would you say to the public who is desperate to see some real prosecutions, especially state capture related or high profile cases?
Well, as I've said, while they're learning these skills, the 10 and the 20 years, that's my view, based on my own experience. But while they're learning their job, of course, they function as prosecutors, so they get better every day. You learn from every case you do, so they get better every day. But to produce a seriously competent, confident, highly skilled specialist prosecutor would take anywhere between 15 to 20 years, where you can go up against any opponent from the bar and feel quite confident when you walk into court. But in the interim, people are going to court and they're winning cases. They don't lose everything. I saw a couple of cases last week where I sent a note to the NDPP to say, well done. So they are winning cases. But the big cases, the ones that the public have invested their hopes on, those are the cases that seem to fail. And I've said many times they need to win one of those, just one, and it will take all the pressure off. So what I would say to the public is support the Anti-Corruption Commission Bill. Support it loudly, vociferously, write to your Member of Parliament and tell them you want it supported. I truly believe it's the answer to this problem.
We have 2 questions from News 24 online for you.
I think that young lady was before you.
Can I just ask the 2 questions from News 24 online? So the first one is, do you believe that the NPA has any real hope of appealing the SCA ruling that confirmed that only the Justice Minister can seek extraditions? The second one is the DA concerned that the 89 extraditions will be affected by the ruling that enabled Moaradi Tsolota to walk free?
Well, it's in South Africa we follow the law of precedent, which really just, we have stare decisis, which means that the decisions of the highest court in the country bind the other courts. And so until that matter is successfully appealed, the decision of the SCA remains binding, and that is, the requirement is that the Minister of Justice makes the application. So it's no good finding reasons for not having done that. They just don't fly. And so an appeal against this current refusal by, I think it's Judge Loubser, I don't think can be successful. The appeal against the SCA matter may well be successful, I don't know, down the line, but at the moment it's binding law. And so, there's no point in obfuscating about that. You just need to comply. Will it affect the other extradition? Certainly it may. It would all depend on the view that the court would take on retrospectivity. So it may affect them. Extraditions don't happen in a day, and they take a long time. So there's plenty of time to correct mistakes if mistakes are made before the application becomes final. So it's not necessarily a train smash.
Good morning, Sine from Daily Maverick here. Just a follow-up on the asbestos situation, the ongoing trial. Earlier this week, you said you would be writing to the Justice Committee about this issue. Have you received any follow-ups to that or response from your side?
No, we wrote the letter on the same day and we haven't received a reply.
Are you concerned about that in any way?
No, the Justice Committee will meet on Tuesday and then I'll raise it with the chairperson. I'm sure he just hasn't had time to write back yet. I'm sure that he would be amenable to such a request. The committee takes these issues as a committee quite seriously. Yeah. Everyone done? Okay. Thank you then, ladies and gentlemen, for getting out of bed on this dreadful day. And have a nice day.
Thanks for watching. Join the mission to rescue South Africa. Like and follow us on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and X. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit that notification bell. Join the DA, because the DA gets things done.